Just kidding. So how many here have been to Mongolia? That's pretty good, actually. That's more than I thought. So I had actually, I'd never been to Mongolia until last September when I was asked by the University of Utah Center of Global Surgery to join them on a trip that we're taking to Mongolia. They were going to be doing a laparoscopic skills training course, and they said, hey, we'd love you to come live stream in 360 VR one of our gallbladder removals. Be the first in the world from Mongolia. We'd love for you to join. I said, of course. I jumped at the opportunity. So about a day after traveling to a small provincial hospital in Tove Imog, which is a province just south of Ulaanbaatar, we started this week-long course. And what they did was Dr. Raymond Price, who's the chair of the Center for Global Surgery, he did a certificate course, he did seminars, he also ran 2 operating rooms concurrently for about 4 days, 10 hours a day, operating on people that had come from around the province. It was a fantastic opportunity. That's actually Ray Price up there in the top right-hand corner with his back facing us, doing a gallbladder removal. This is Jay Nunez, one of his attendings who's teaching basic suturing skills using a laparoscopic tool. And then this is one of our camera team who's practicing some horse riding. And then this was one of the best experiences I've had. This was the first meal we had in Mongolia. And it was also my first sheep roast, where they took a sheep and they slaughtered it and put hot rocks into it, buried it in the sand for about 4 hours, cooked it, and then we ate it in the chief of surgery. His father had opened up his yurt, and there was about 30 of us who we had a great dinner and toasted the upcoming week. So it was a fantastic, very eye-opening experience for me. I learned 3 things. First of all, there's a great asymmetry in the training and knowledge we have in the developed world, in the United States and the rest of the world. So these were surgeons who were 30, 40, 50, 60 years old who were learning basic skills that a third-year medical student would learn in terms of laparoscopic skills. And it's not for lack of ability. It was lack of access. No one had ever come and given them the opportunity to train. The second thing I learned was the need for global surgery and the problem of global surgery is very real. We had one woman who traveled over 200 kilometers to get her gallbladder removed, which is just ridiculous. We had another woman who barely made it to the hospital before they had to operate on her because you're so critical. These are very commonplace surgeries in the developed world we take for granted, but here they're life-threatening, or in Mongolia they're life-threatening. And then the third is that this model of sending a team for 2 to 3 weeks a year to some far-flung place to train is horribly unscalable and unsustainable. The Lancet Commission on Global Surgery published a report about 3 years ago, I believe, that said over 60% of the world, 5 billion people, lack access to safe and affordable surgical care. It's an astounding number. What does that mean, surgical care? That means a woman who's hemorrhaging during childbirth. That means someone who's had a burn and needs to get skin graft. That means someone who has developed cancer and needs to have the cancer removed surgically. To put another number to that, that's over 16 million people per year dying because of lack of access to these types of procedures. And again, very basic procedures, well, not basic, but procedures that we have access to, and a trained physician in the Western world has the infrastructure and the training to do those. Another point of context, the WHO said there's about 1 million people that die each year of HIV-related illnesses and about 400,000 people that die of malaria. And I'm not using those numbers to say that the problem or the solution is equal or more complex or less complex, but it gives you a perspective on this giant problem of global surgery that I think is coming to the fore, and I think it's a critical thing moving forward. So what does that look like in terms of training and education? So the Lancet Commission said there's about 1 million trained surgeons, anesthesiologists, and OBGYN in the global workforce now. In order to meet this unmet demand and need for surgical care, by 2030 we would need to double that workforce. That's an astounding and giant task. That's 143 million procedures each year that we need to add, additional procedures each year for the next 13 years. That's not cumulative, that's each year. So again, another very daunting statistic. So how are we training now? So this is a picture that I took. I filmed a surgery not too long ago. This was in California, top tier institution. That's a medical student, third-year medical student doing her rotation. She's sitting in the back of the room, not because she doesn't want to learn, but because she physically can't see anything because there's too many people around this operating room. She'd just gotten off her phone because she was working on different things. The nurses were coming in and out. This is very common if you've ever been in an OR. You have residents, you have medical students standing in the back of the room. It's a one-to-one relationship. You have to get into the OR to see what it's like to be in the OR, which makes a lot of sense. And this is just not going to meet that need. You are not going to be able to cram people into an OR and train them to meet this need by 2030. One of the pictures that I showed you in Mongolia with Dr. Price, what you didn't see was there were a dozen other people on the back wall of that operating room standing on chairs, standing on boxes to watch him do a gallbladder removal. So this is how it's currently done. They're also, they're going to YouTube to watch okay videos in 2D. But this is the developing world. There's got to be a better solution. I'm here to say that this is a very complex problem. And a small piece of that is using immersive 360 VR to train and immerse people in what it's like to be in the operating room. So at Giblet, we have a platform where we go in and we film procedures in 360 VR so that you get a feel and a sense of what it's like to see the team operating. You can access it for free on your desktop, mobile device, and a VR headset. What does that look like? So this is just a screenshot of one of the cases we've done. So this is the surgeon operating. You see the entire OR. You can pan and zoom around it. You can zoom into specific portions. It's all independent. As any of you who've ever been on Facebook knows, you can move your phone. You can access it on your mobile phone. And as you move, your perspective moves. So what this provides is a much more immersive learning opportunity. So rather than just seeing what's going on inside the patient, you can see what's going on with the team. And for those of you who are ever been in the surgical world, there's a significant portion of the surgical case that is not going on inside of the patient. And success with a surgery is often dependent on how the team operates. So how is a surgeon interacting with the anesthesiologist? How is she, for example, or she or he using the instruments, port placement, ergonomics? How's the room set up? Are they bringing instruments in and out? Are they using a grasper? Are they putting in a different type of probe? And at what time and what intervals are those going on? These are all things that you oftentimes don't get perspective on when you're in the operating room, standing back there like this gentleman with his arms crossed. You probably can't see what's going on over here. Another thing we do is we take the feed. This is actually the laparoscopic feed of what's going on inside the patient. We superimpose it onto the feed. So you can still, if you're a seasoned surgeon and really are more interested in the nuances and the technique of a specific surgeon, you can watch what's going on, or you can zoom out and see the rest of the OR. And this works for robotic feed, laparoscopic feed, and we also film if you're doing we did a liver transplant. So what is it, what are they doing, suturing, things like that. So we think this is a wholly better way to train on operations. We think that, and what we've seen is it's a lot more engaging for someone who, in a provincial hospital in Namibia, wants to know really what's going on in the OR. Medical students love this, residents love this, because, again, it's about access. You don't have to try and work your schedule out to try and get in the OR with a specific surgeon to be able to see the procedure. So we're currently working on a number of pilot programs. One of our lead partners is Keck Medicine of USC. So we are going in and we film weekly their surgeons on their performing their procedures, and it's used as an opportunity to train their residents, fellows, medical students. And it's scalable. So if you imagine you have a new crop of residents that come through each year, or you have medical students that come through each year, they can see the same surgeon operating in the way she likes to operate by watching the video. And you can see how the room is set up and all that kind of thing without having to go in. So you're prepped when you actually do go into the OR. But on a larger scale, using our platform, you now broadcast this to a global audience. You're using a top-tier institution and the knowledge they have and the expertise they have, and you are essentially providing that to the global audience so that they can learn and reduce that asymmetry of knowledge. So what does that look like in the future? So Medicine X 2027, 10 years from now, I would put my money to say that this conference will probably be entirely VR then. We'll be here watching this talk or watching a future talk from the comfort of our home or from the comfort of our autonomous car. So there's a lot of possibility. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, 360 VR, that's the start. Well, it is. It very much is. But it provides an exponentially more immersive learning experience. And the future with VR and AR is bright because we're building a beachhead here. We demonstrate the technology is available and the learning outcomes are there, and it's serving a larger community on a mobile device using an internet connection. So in the future, imagine a regional hospital is being served by a telemedicine by a surgeon in the United States where they can guide you through a procedure. That's one opportunity. Or using AR where you can superimpose the location of an appendix for a surgeon, for a patient, so even a surgeon who is not as highly trained has the opportunity to perform a procedure that could save a life. So again, the possibilities are bright, and I'm sure as even you've seen in the consumer world, VR is only at its beginning. So it's exciting to see where this could be in 10 years. So I hope that you're all back here and you'll connect with me on my VR headset then. So with that, thank you, and open for questions. I also have a demo of one of our surgeries that you can watch on a headset if you'd like to grab me outside the conference room. Yes, sir. Yeah. That's a great question. So it's kind of there's two things there's one, there's like a live portion, and then there's a pre-recorded portion. So in the live portion, we don't do those as often. They're a lot more technically difficult, and there's a lot of like patient confidentiality concerns. But in Mongolia, we were able to broadcast it with a fairly basic internet connection using buffering and different technologies, using commercially available equipment. The idea is we didn't want to go out and build a $100,000 rig because what's the point? That in itself is not a scalable model. So we went out and we looked at what was the hardware on the market, and we looked at action sports. Action sports had a ton of cameras that were durable, had good quality, they were affordable, there were things we could take with us in a suitcase, and we picked the best of the breed there. And then we picked standard commercial off-the-shelf live streaming equipment, so where you could use variable bitrate streams, send it to a server that would then buffer it so that you could distribute it and not have to worry about the local internet connection, or one that you could, we use a system where you could daisy chain SIM cards, so you use the bandwidth of 2 SIM cards and essentially double your bandwidth, so it's offloading it to multiple locations. So that's one solution. And again, live streaming is a total different animal, and we've done a number of them. It's actually pretty difficult in the US, not because of the technology, but more because of the different regulatory concerns at hospitals. For pre-recording, we've actually got a pretty good process where we work with the hospital, we go through all the legal paperwork. Once you have that down, we have a very lightweight setup that we can put the cameras in the OR, either mounting them on a lighting structure or on an anesthesiologist pole. And our goal is not to interfere with the surgeon's procedure. The patient and the patient's safety is our utmost concern. So if we get in your way, scrap the procedure. But again, they're like little baseball-sized cameras that we can put around. And the goal is that we could go in and film these in a number of different institutions, or even have other people filming them and putting them on our platform. We're not a hardware company. We're more about creating the content. So I hope that answered your question. We use a single 360 VR camera. We use a GoPro for a wide-angle shot if you want to add more content on the footage. But we try to use maximum 1 or 2 cameras. So I think to your question, you're probably thinking that you can move around in space. This is more a single POV. It would be pretty technically difficult to move around in space with live video. But I can show you the demo if you'd like and get a good feel for that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. We did have a chat feed, so you could send in questions. And we'd done this in the US a little while ago. This was the first one we'd done in Mongolia. But in the chat feed, you could ask questions like, oh, I notice you're using this type of equipment. What's the benefit of that? Oh, what's that structure I see to the left? And they say, okay, that's the liver, things like that. So they were able to send in questions, and we had a resident answering the questions so the surgeon could focus on the procedure. Yes. Yeah, we're actually starting a study to track that with university. I won't say what university, but we're going to be tracking the differences between 2D and 360 VR to see, one, is it beneficial, and then two, is there prolonged like nausea? Are there any negative side effects of using the headset? You can also watch this on a browser, so you still get the 360 VR and the educational benefit in a browser. It's just not as immersive. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.